Are things getting better or are they getting worse? I think about this often. I don't know why. Maybe it's because this is what I'm in. So, again, constantly monitoring. I do think about this a lot, though, because I'll see so many, I guess, people in content pushing things getting worse. And as somebody that does this for a living, has been doing it a while, I'll look at that approach and go, okay, so when something, and I've said this before, obviously, like if your whole brand is bad thing happens and now I'm going to tell you that the bad thing is bad, I'm not going to be super impressed because I think it's fairly easy, but it is effective because it seems to work. Because sometimes people will look at things and go, you're right, that is bad. I agree with you. And sometimes I'll wonder, like, do you want more bad things to happen to try to prove some kind of point? And then we'll have like a bad things happening off that goes in like opposing directions where whatever your priorities are, if something bad happens, you'll point to that. And then the other person who completely has different priorities will say, well, look what the bad thing that's happening to my priorities are the things that I care about. And then we just, go at it. Fun day, fun times. But the conclusion that I've come to here in, I don't know how many years, last few years, this is not a new thing. It's not a hobby. I don't think I'm going to go back to school. I'm not going to try to teach a course on this because it's all pretty simple to find this stuff. But the conclusion that I've come to, it's not that things are getting worse. It's just that there's a heightened awareness. We are at peak awareness of all things that are happening. So there'll be times I think, okay, I'm seeing this a lot. Does this mean that it's more than before? And then you go back and you look at the numbers over a 10, 20-year period, and you're like, this is kind of unchanged. Yet the temperature of this topic or this issue is cranked up, not because it's happening more often. It's just that the awareness has increased. And I don't even think this can be debated anymore. I'm calling it a theory of awareness, but in reality, I think that's kind of the truth. You want some good numbers? Because there are other people that spend a lot of time, who spend their careers in this, that will argue things have never been better, and they project to get even better. You want some extreme poverty rates in the United States? I got one for you. 1963, 57% of the country. Today, under 15%. 1900, Mexico literacy rate. You ready for that one? Buckle up. 24%. Only 24% of the population of Mexico in 1900 could read or write. Today, it's over 95%. That's good news. I got one for you. The murder rate in Italy in the 1400s, look out. You're lucky to go outside. 70 people per 100,000 citizens. Now that murder rate, 1 person per 100,000. We do it all day. You want to tell me you can find some stuff that's getting worse? No doubt you can do it. But a lot of this stuff, the trend's overwhelmingly positive. One that isn't great, though, didn't realize this, the population projections for Italy. Peak population in 2017 of 60 million people projects to 35 million people in 2099. That's not good news. If I'm wrong, probably won't be around podcasting in 2099. If I am, wait, what? Why the fuck is he talking about this? Well, I have a reason. Because a quarterback at UNLV, Matt Sluka, bounced on his team. Breaking news this morning. So he either quit or he asked for something and they were like, that's not going to work out. I don't know what to believe on any of this, okay? And he's off the team, or he bounced. I read his quote. I'll share some of that stuff with you. I think this is a very gray area story for almost all of us that are talking about it or have an opinion on it. But his quote was this, quote, I committed to UNLV based on certain representations that were made to me, which were not upheld after I enrolled, end quote. So, and I know some of you were thinking, hey, didn't he play at Holy Cross? You're going to stick up for a guy. The Cross? You're going to stick up for him. I don't know which side to take in this one, because with the information that we have, could it be that he transfers to UNLV, he's told there's going to be a number, and with this NIL free-for-all that we're in, that the promises were not upheld, according to his quote. He could 100% be telling the truth. It would not be the first time we've heard a story about some NIL promises not working out. Or, to be fair to UNLV, potentially on the other side of the story, could you have a quarterback who, got a number, came in, wins a starting job. They're 3-0. They got Fresno State. Best start, I believe, for UNLV since 1984. A potential chance at a playoff spot. There's another story that I read this morning that the family grabbed some further representation. And they were like, hey, this NIL thing is kind of a free-for-all. I'd like to maybe revisit that. We're 3-0. I could see that happening. So I'm not going to crush him, certainly, because the possibility exists that he was lied to and somebody didn't step up. But I'm also not going to completely blame UNLV here because I know that I don't know. I remember last season, there was a really good player on a team. And I was talking to that team and I was like, that guy's a stud. And the first thing they said to me, they're like, he won't be here next year. I was like, well, that seems weird. He's really good. I feel like every week with this guy, he and his family, every week. It's like, yeah, knew it'd be nice, a little sweetener. And those are my words, right? But the premise that was explained to me was that whatever number it is, it's a different number, the request they continue. And I was like, all right. And I was a little dubious, somebody just going like, that guy won't be here next year. Guess what? He's not there. And he's still really good. So what happens is you have someone, maybe even my age, right? Sometimes I forget I'm older with a number. Other times I don't know if it's a youthful spirit or immaturity or just a vision on things or just trying to be fair. But like, maybe it's my age or maybe it's your dad or somebody who sees this kind of story. He's like, are you kidding me? A quarterback on a 3-0 team looked at his teammates, looked at his head coach and said, I'm out of here. Now, some think because of the NIL that this is the end of football, right? That's not true. We know that. But this story is so gross, right, to the competitive spirit of like what this is all supposed to be about, that maybe some of you or people think, well, what if he was misled? But man, the team is so good. Like, how could you do that to your team? I remember working with Tim Tebow back in the day at ESPN. I have nothing but good things to say about Tebow. I like Tebow, all right? I do believe he kind of walked the way he talked. But when he went on TV and started saying, like, you shouldn't get paid, you shouldn't be compensated, all that stuff, he got destroyed for it. And he would get crushed even more so now because now it's generally accepted with the NIL. Like, again, thinking about some of the arguments over the years of why kids couldn't get money. I remember I was looking at some of the excerpts in these debates, and I think the NCAA had said, like, at some point, like, these are young men. Like, look how poorly they'll make financial decisions. Like, dude, I have buddies my age that I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, I bought a fucking boat. So, who is anyone to tell anyone of value how they're supposed to spend their money? If they want to waste it, who gives a shit? But they should have some. And I'm happy that they now have an avenue to get some of this money. But when this stuff starts to happen with something that is based in tradition, you get a lot of people going up. Here we go. This guy on a 3-0 team, historic potential season for UNLV. He quit on his teammates because of some money. Again, this money is being provided because the NCAA doesn't want to give up any. And they're like, well, look, let's just let them have the NIL and then everybody else can pay them and then we'll just get out of the way. The other part with the NIL, which I think is completely, I think there's some really good ones. Some, I don't know all about it, right? There's some collectives that probably do a really good job with this, that care about the brand, care about the school, alums that are involved. There's also a lot of other people out there that once this thing was opened up, and it was opened up without any real preparation, it was like, yeah, okay, now just go ahead and do whatever you want. Even though I think at some point the NCAA tried to say, like, there are still rules, even though when we would talk with Bruce Feldman, he'd be telling us, like, the schools are like, we don't even really know what we're supposed to do here. But when transactions exist, there are going to be people that are going to say, well, if a transaction is happening, that means there's a potential cut somewhere. So I don't think all of the people involved in this world are doing it for the greater good of the student athlete, for the school that they love. They just see a potential earning opportunity, right? So as bad as the headline can be of a quarterback leaving his team could be, I don't think this is going to be the first time, which would then lead us to believe that things will continue to get worse if you believe that. I can think of this as like, all right, if I were a 20-something, if I was the quarterback of a football team, how hard it would be for me to look at my teammates and say, you know what? Even if I was wronged, I'm out of here. I don't know. I don't think it's fair for me to try to do that. Maybe it's age speaking. I don't think it's a sense of duty. And if he did get screwed, there's certainly a line where all of us could look at it and go, all right, well, that's ridiculous, right? Be like, I don't love what he did, but I understand why he did it. Imagine if in the NFL, if you could just, you could go to the GM, you could go to ownership and go, hey, man, quarterbacks were 0 for 5 against me today on attempted throws. You know, the GM's like, yeah, 3 overthrows and you had safety help every time. Whatever. Oh, like corners would be in the transfer portal every single week in the NFL, but they have contracts. It's different. It is not what we are dealing with these agreed upon numbers and that everybody's supposed to get the money to you. But really, it's not the beginning of the end. It's just the beginning of something different. It's something different that you're going to have to accept that more stories like this will happen, but it doesn't mean the end of college football, right? But the people that want to tell you that it's the end, that are then going back to the thing they care about and pointing out only the bad things, they're just going to keep banging this drum. Like, remember when Hafley left BC to become a coordinator? And then you had Chip Kelly leave UCLA to be the offensive coordinator. Then you had the Kentucky. It was like, look, somebody I like was like, I hope college football is paying attention. Look what's happening. This NIL, the transfer portal, all this stuff. The job is so much tougher. It's a completely different job. Maybe some guys just went to the NFL because it's kind of awesome there too. Here's a guess. My guess is that people will still want to coach in college football because it's an awesome job. It may be harder. It is different, but it's still an awesome job. And 10 years ago, 11 coaches made $4 million or more a year. Now that number is over 50 coaches making $4 million plus. All right. So it's going to happen. Whenever I see the calls happening around me, right? Like, okay, here we go. This is over. Not sustainable. All these different things. Like, this is it. This is over. And like in the moment, when it's happening all the time, you're like, is this really that big of a deal? I remember getting picked up at an airport, NFL City. I'm in the taxi. Taxi driver's like, what's your racket? A lot of times I lie. Oh, I'm inciting. Oh, yeah? How's that? Well, we've got a saying inciting. Each house has 4 sides. So you do the math. It's going pretty well. I'm going to hit that 30% tip button in the middle. That's usually put there to trick people into hitting it. I'm going to hit it with no regrets. That's how well siding's going. I told him the truth. I was like, I work in sports. And he was like, oh, yeah? I stopped watching the NFL because of Kaepernick. I was like, ooh, all right. And my first thought was, okay, well, did you actually like the NFL, or is this like giving up whaling for Lent? And he was like, no, season tickets, 20 years, every Sunday, watch all the road games, favorite thing to do. So I was like, so you are depriving yourself of joy, something you've really been excited about for a really long time, like kind of your makeup. And just because somebody you don't know did something you don't like, and you're just done on the NFL. And he was like, yep, I'm done. Again, it was kind of like the pulling of one. Lesser podcast hosts would probably start their newest pod and be like, dude, the NFL's in trouble. I was in a taxi the other day. Fucking look out. But that message was being pushed there for a little while, right? A message that feels similar today with Sluka leaving UNLV. It's like, here we go. Because remember, there was like this weird little ratings dip thing on the chart there. You know what? I don't think we hear about that anymore. And after the new TV deal, I think the NFL's fine. I think they've weathered the Kaepernick ratings dip doubt storm. So I think there's similarities, and I think in the moment it's easy to just start going, well, this is ridiculous. A quarterback on a college team, whether or not he was lied to, decided to just leave his team when they have a playoff spot on the line. And I would say, yeah, there's a version of this that really sucks. There's a version of this where I would have his back. But, these are not the 2099 Italian population projections we're talking about here. We are talking about a new world that may feel disruptive day to day, but it just means the product and the job is different, and we're all still going to watch.